Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk language learning. Learning a language can be quite tiresome, but even tedious, because it's all sitting and studying for hours and trying to memorize grammar, which can be insanely boring. However, there is one method that is so much more fun and so much easier for you to learn a language. And that is watching TV shows and movies in your target language. Pretty much everyone does this, but the huge difference when it comes to their success is that some people use methods that are more effective than others. So watching media of any kind to learn a language is a method that can be bent into something very efficient and effective. So how do we do this? Before you start saying, no, Alina, you cannot learn a language through TV shows. You have to grow up with them. No. Okay, no. Because I've seen countless people learn Turkish through Turkish TV shows and nothing else. And they speak at least decent Turkish and they understand almost everything that you say. Of course, I do not recommend using TV shows as your only method, but it's something that can and will take you so much farther than you would be by just studying. So let's start breaking down all the different ways that you can do this one method and whether you should do it or not. I recommend for starters to start watching things that you would already watch, but with subtitles in your target language. It sounds a bit backwards, but I promise it isn't, and it's so effective actually. So let's say an Italian viewer is watching something in Italian, but with English subtitles. So things like one-liners or simple expressions, they will be shown to you. And even if you don't feel like you've learned those words, trust me, you have at least gained this familiarity with them. Again, when you're still a starter, you can see these words in your target language and you're building it upon your existing native language. And that is really helpful because your brain requires some kind of connections for you to remember things and categorize things. First, you're going to look out for things that you already know and you already learned. Looking out for these things will help you focus bit by bit onto your target language. Then you're going to try to find expressions and words that come up more and more frequently, and then you're going to make those into a list. And here the trick is not to sit and try to memorize all the lines and that entire script to the movie. No. So you're going to make them into a list and either write them in your vocabulary notebook if you have one, or your flashcards. However, preferably you'll make them into a list, translate them, and then come back a day or two later and try to first remember them, use them as flashcards, and then try to use them to make sentences. It's the general method of using your knowledge to make new connections or try to make up something, just like how in math class they don't ask you what Pythagoras theorem is, but they try to tell you to use it. It's just that same idea, but in language learning. And if you do this, I recommend that you leave your sentences as they are and come back just 3-4 days later and read them and try to remember them. Or you could even try to write a short little paragraph with those words that come up and you made into a list. So why do I recommend this? That is because hearing your target language is going to sound like a mushy thing, like all words are blending together, you will not really understand anything. However, if you're hearing your trusted native language and you are seeing your target language, you're going to get to learn how some words are spelled. Even if it's just very basic words, you are going to be reminded constantly that they are written in that way. So reading and spelling skills are really, really affected by this. And so is recognizing words because, again, as I told you before, immersion. So you're immersing yourself in this language and it's like this ocean, right? So you're dipping your entire brain into this ocean of words and your brain will remember. Even if you do not think you do, your brain will remember, and this familiarity is what you need when going forward. So another way is to reverse the process. I think this is what almost everyone does, which is audio in your target language and subtitles in your native language. This is great because now you're going to hear pronunciation. It is much easier to find media in your target language and subtitles in your native language without using a VPN. And I want to here remind you that there are many TV shows and movies on YouTube in many languages. Go on all platforms that you have and try to find anything that works for you. It's the same principle as the first one. You are immersing yourself, it's this ocean of words, and you're hearing what the language sounds like. And I think that's super good because spoken language and written language are not the same in many cases. And if you just go on with written language, you will have a really hard time speaking. Another well-known way to do this is to do both audio and subtitles in your target language. This method is so much harder than the first two because you have no native language to rely on. You only have your visuals and whatever you know in your target language. But the one trick here is that you have to push yourself to use visual cues. Most media has props and creative choices that highlight some things more than others, and so use those senses to try to understand more and more. I recommend this if you're studying in B1 level. It's not very productive otherwise, I think, because you have no inherent understanding of the language at all if you're in like A1 or A2, and your brain will get tired very quickly, and we do not want that. The first trick here is to watch something you've already watched. So let's say, and with an E, you already watched it in your native language, let's say dubbed in Spanish, but you are a English learner who wants to learn English better and better. You already know the plots, you already know what happens, and you really like the show, so you have this inherent understanding of the plot and many of the dialogue pieces that go on. You're going to be building up on that, and you have your memory of this plot to rely on while learning the language. And this is amazing because it helps you learn in sync, especially with languages that are a bit harder with pronunciation. You will be hearing one word and seeing the same word spelled in front of you, and you're going to say, oh, so that is how you spell this word that I've been seeing before. The one issue with people who learn by speaking to others or watching stuff like shows and movies, they have this problem with spelling and the tiny but important grammar details. And doing this method will help you eliminate most of those things. However, you have to keep in mind that not all the time does the audio match the subtitles. That is one big issue with Swedish media, where they will be speaking one thing, and that's the spoken like daily language, but then they will polish it and write them as subtitles. But then that really puts you in a spiral when you're trying to understand what they're saying by hearing, but also reading the subtitles. And that is why I'm saying you should have this at least like basic to medium level of understanding of the language so that you can actually understand whether they're in sync or not. So if you notice that your audio and subtitles do not really match, I recommend switching to something else if you can. Otherwise, you'll get really, really confused. And if you absolutely cannot find anything with either transcribed or matching subtitles, I think you should give up on it at least for a bit. And again, if you cannot do this, I recommend you go on to audiobook and physical book combination instead, as most of the time those match. And trust me, it's going to have pretty much the same effects, so do not give up. If your audio and your subtitles do match, I recommend that you pause the video at some points and repeat the sentences yourself so that you're also focusing on your pronunciation, because many times we can hear and understand that that is how it's pronounced, but we personally don't have that refined pronunciation of that same word. And here you're going to start small and then go on to more and more sentences that maybe you're having a hard time with. And lastly, you can just watch your media with no subtitles. That is because many people get actually dependent on subtitles to understand the language, and while speaking, no one's going to give you subtitles of what they're saying. So you have to stop relying on them. Advanced people need to do this because only then can you stop relying on all these kinds of factors that are giving you clues, like written, visual, auditorial. It's just a bit too many. So these were the 4 ways that you can use TV shows and other kinds of media to learn a language. I put them in the order of your language level, but everyone's different, so you can mix and match and see which one works for you the best. But try to remember that you shouldn't be feeling too comfortable with this method. If you're having a very easy time watching in matching audio and subtitles, then you have to push yourself just a little bit more. So here are some other kinds of tips and details that you should think about. The first thing here is that you don't always have to use your native language specifically. Let's say you're watching something that is originally Korean and you do not know Korean and are not planning on learning it. So I recommend using one of your target languages as subtitles. So for example, you are still learning English, but you're from Turkey. And so you are going to use subtitles in English and not in Turkish so that you're pushing yourself just a bit more while also watching things that you're already planning on watching. While you are using this as your native language, you are going to be keeping that one language that you learned before while also adding on a new one. And if these languages are in the same like family, then trust me, you're going to have the easiest time of your life. Because learning Spanish with the base of Italian is going to be so much easier than learning Spanish with the base of Turkish or with the base of any language that isn't close to it. What really should you watch? I've seen many people ask, and I'm going to say whatever you're watching, whatever is your cup of tea already, go with that. But there are some other details that you'll have to think about. So you love watching sci-fi. I don't really recommend, because just think about any sci-fi or fantasy movie. They're going to have terminology that is specific to that world building, and it's going to confuse you even farther. Whereas you could be sitting and watching Friends, for example, or any kind of sitcom, and they're talking daily language and they're talking daily normal people earth stuff. So it's going to be so much easier on you as a learner, and you're going to be filling your brain with things that are more important than unobtainium in Avatar. You know, you can watch cartoons and like Disney Channel type of stuff as well, but again, if you're going to enjoy them. So like you could sit and watch any kind of cartoon to learn your language, but it's not really going to help you if you're not at all interested in it. So that's why I always come back to watch whatever is your favorite type of thing and whatever you're already going to watch. Do not limit yourself to movies or to series. You can watch documentaries, you can watch cartoons, you can watch YouTube videos. There are so many people who put subtitles in many languages, and it's really going to help you. We're not done here, because whatever we're doing, we always want to elevate all methods as much as possible and as much as we can so that we end up in a more effective method than it would be. So, if you have a language learning partner or a native speaker or someone that you're learning the language together with, you can watch the same thing either together or by yourself, and then you will be having a 30-minute, maybe 1 hour, or maybe even longer conversation about whatever you watched. You're going to summarize what happened and what you thought was the best scene, the worst scene, what you liked about the plot, what made you cry or what made you laugh, all these kinds of things, as if you were reviewing something. And you can go on many tangents depending on what your media was. Trust me, you will learn so much by doing this. The two most important tricks here are that you shouldn't be getting way too comfortable unless you're completely fluent, and you should be elevating your experience as much as you can. Go read reviews, go watch reviews, go see what people think, and you are going to then make this into something huge that will make you a part of the language. Thank you for watching if you have made it this far, and I wish you the easiest and best language learning experience, and hope that this video did help you. I will see you in the next one.